Okay, it is Tuesday, August the 4th. Welcome to week number 5. I said it, week number 5 of Realities in Criminal Justice. The course is um, moving pretty fast. So, but all right. So I hope you guys can all hear me now and you got your audio in there. Um, but I'm all set here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I do want to say at the beginning that I am still working on week 3. I've been slowed down with this aching right arm. I will get them done in the next day or so, between today and tomorrow. So also, I want to say to those of you who are having trouble with the course project, keep pushing at it, keep working at it. I'm hoping that by the time this course comes around again, they will have made some changes because there are issues that students have with trying to get these interviews done. I am going to be very, very flexible with the deadlines for the course project portion, not the other part, not the written part, and definitely not the discussions, but I will be very flexible with getting that in. But my flexibility only goes as far as the last day of class. So um, keep on working to get that done. All right, so let's take a look and share my screen. Okay, you've seen all of this before, and you can see that we got 2 more lectures, the one today, and then next Tuesday will be the final lecture. Okay, so you got all the lectures here. And before we get to the announcement, let's take a quick look at the course calendar. Okay, this is where we are right now. Your initial post due tonight. Coverage of the Trayvon Martin case. And your reply post is due Saturday. And then your written assignment, impartial trials, is due on Sunday. And then your course project final paper. Again, as I said, I'm going to be very flexible with students who have been trying to get the draft in and everything because there's been problems with getting some of these people interviewed. But I'm not going to be so flexible with those who didn't do the questions because that you could do yourself. All right. So you see that next week when we come together, that the course ends the 16th. That's the last day of class. Okay. So we'll talk about that on the 11th, which is a week from today. All right. Let's get into the course homepage and let's see what the announcement is for the week 5 announcement. So for this week, we're dealing with the right to know and uh, the issue of the reading. Someone has said to me that the media, the jury, and the high profile defendant, a defense perspective on media circus, I thought was in there. Regarding the Trayvon Martin trial, as I said to a couple of students, there's plenty of information out there you can find. You can find some in our library. You can find extensive amount dealing with Google. But whatever you do, do not use Wikipedia. So, and it tells you information about the Trayvon Martin trial. And then we're going to talk about the activity, um, media and active investigations. And then the discussion assignment, media coverage of Trayvon Martin case. The initial post again is due tonight. The reply post is due Sunday. I keep saying Sunday, but I mean Saturday. Finally, the written assignment, impartial trials, and the course project. Course is due the final paper. And as I said, I will be very flexible with that. Don't worry about that. There are some people who get stressed out about it. Don't worry about it. You'll have a chance to get that completed. So let's take a look at the module itself. Here are the assignments. Okay. So so read the article, Betrayal of the First Amendment Purpose. Okay. And this one, when somebody asked me about um, the trial by media, going back again to the announcement, course home. Media, the jury, and the high profile defendant defense perspective. You will not find that directly in here, but what you will find in the module, what you will find in the module for the assignment is trial by media, the betrayal of the First Amendment purpose, and then you can copy and paste this and it'll lead you to it. So after reading this information, then you're going to discover that the article that's in here is a part of this. So if you open this up, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay. And then it talks about O.J. Simpson, and it talks about some other things there as well. So you got to make sure you read that. So after you've read that, and reading this article, a 1 to 2 page paper dealing with all 4 of these issues. Okay. And then, of course, go to the rubric, and it tells you for 20 points, um, examine the media's live broadcast of it, how it affects a defendant's Sixth Amendment right to an impartial jury, whether the live broadcast affects it at all. Um, then for 20 more points, identify whether the media information uh, given to jurors help determine the outcome of the case. And that's before trial, of course, because, you know, the media information for most jurors in high profile cases should not affect it because they're sequestered. And then include a list of a minimum of 3 issues related to the general public knowing about the case details, the suspect witnesses, and prior to trial, uh, is it possible for a jury to remain unbiased? Why or why not? And then it's a 1 to 2 page paper. Of course, we all it's APA cover page, Roman uh, 12, and we also know that it is a references at the end, citations in the body. Okay, and there it is right there in that section there. Any questions about the written assignment? No questions? Okay, if you do, you can type it in the chat box and I'll see it. All right, so then let's go back. Discussion. Again, after reviewing the Trayvon Martin trial, explain how you feel the media influenced the public's opinion of Zimmerman. Also explain how you feel the media influenced the public opinion of Martin. Again, you could do some general research and find that information because there is no direct information included in the module. Hopefully when they redo this, they will add some stuff, or either maybe they might move on because it's getting dated now. Then the final thing that I already talked about, your rough draft. Um, Many of you have completed, some of you have not. It's time to develop the formal paper detailing your interview experience. Write a 5 to 7 page paper supported by the interviews you've conducted from the 2 different sources, which means you're going to be dealing with all 10 questions. Write in paragraph form and not, list and answer. And so don't list the answers in bullet points. Include a minimum of three in-text citations of the person you're interviewing. Um, it says no reference page is needed. Well, I recommend to my students that you do use outside sources. So if you're going to be using outside sources, which will make your paper better, then, and it actually enhances the information that you get from the individual that you are interviewing. Make sure you have a reference page and citations. Be sure to provide an explanation of your results, and APA format is required. That's why it's kind of crazy for them to say no reference page and then say APA, because APA is citations and references. So I'm just going to tell you, make sure that you do that. Now, if you look at the, whoops, this thing here is acting up again. Let's go to rubric. Here we go. A minimum of 3 in-text citations and quotes from the interviewee, and the paper contains an explanation of the results. Okay, and then these are the standard things: 5 to 7 pages, double space, and then this is standard stuff. So you understand when I say also that you have citations in the body and references at the end. Provide your references at the end. And references are also the name, like the organization of the individual that you are interviewing as well, for 125 points. Again, this is due on Sunday, and it tells you, go back the 9th. Remember, I'm going to be very flexible, but I cannot go beyond the 16th. I cannot. So you'll have time to work that out. I'm going to be very flexible with that. Any questions about the final project?
So are we pretty much just taking our rough drafts and just kind of molding them together to form our final paper? Or
Yeah,
do you want us to go like kind of keep them completely separate and run the 10 questions for, like how mine was the police officer, do his whole section and then do the 10 questions from the reporter?
well, you're going to do that in both of them, actually. So you're going to put that in the remember your draft, what your draft calls for. If you go back and you look at what it said that the draft calls for, and let's go back and take a look at that. I think that was that week 3? I think that
Week
was,
4, I think, was draft.
oh, that's right. That's right. Week 3 was just the create your interview questions. Week 4 is says here, and you'll answer your question by seeing what I'm going to show you in a minute. Okay, so if you satisfy all of these points in week number 4, then which your assignment, of course, again, it should have been in a couple of days ago, but I'm very flexible with letting people do it. I don't want your draft though, rough draft and your final draft though to both be submitted at the same time, because that doesn't make any sense. But what I do want you to do is satisfy all of the requirements here, and then going back to your question that you asked me, when you get to the assignment 4, you're going to write, and then it's telling you how to set it out and have it, and make sure that you and this is a cleanup. This is basically a cleanup. So theoretically, a person could do a very good job, and I said this before, a very good job in week 4 and have not much to do week 5. I do highly recommend that in week 5, though, that you do provide some articles or some publications um, to support the process that you are dealing with, whether it's the PIO and or the newspaper or the media reporter. Okay, does that answer the question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So anyway, that's it. It's for a course at a bachelor level, a 5 to 7 double page paper is not hard to come up with what we've been doing since the beginning of this course, especially for putting the questions together and the answers. And the answers should be detailed, not short answers, and that you should also provide some citations to at least 3 of the statements that the individual makes. And then if you have quotes, of course, you also already know you provide citations to that kind of thing as well. And if you have sources, of course, citing your sources in the body and then your references at the end. But when you do whoever it is you're interviewing, you're still going to use them as a citation in the body, and you're still going to reference them at the end for whatever agency or organization that they are with, their position, their status, and so forth, and so on. So that's the project. That's it for week 5. Okay. All right. So let's get into what I want to talk to you about tonight. All right. So it talks about the reading being the media, the jury, and the high-profile defendant. Um, they, I think what they need to do is they need to fix this point, because this reading is not in here, and neither is this. But I've already said the Trayvon Martin trial. There's information everywhere. I mean, all over the place about Trayvon Martin. And if you actually were to do this, and I'm going to show you. See, you could come up with Trayvon Martin trial facts. Don't use this though. Whatever you do, don't use this. You can use CPN. You can use other articles. You can use other information. and don't use stuff like the 5 myths involved. You can go through and you can find so much information, so much coverage. Here's a day by day right here that you can find it. And you can find all kinds of information that's good to use here. If you go back, oops, I lost it. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Facts. And again, do not use Wikipedia. I'm cautioning you. And you can go to these. These are all good sources, especially CNN. The Washington Post wrote 5 myths. You can read them, but don't cite them in your paper. And then this information. But one of the best sources that you're going to find is that day by day that the New York Times explain, starting with the opening statements and all the information. That is the best place to find information. If you were to go and click on that, which I'm doing, and it actually goes through and it gives you blow by blow of the trial itself, gives you some really good information all the way with pictures and to the end and some of the testimony. So that is the best. That is the best. So the Trayvon Martin issue is not a problem. Dealing with the media, the jury, and a high profile defendant, a defense perspective, um, I don't, like I said again, I have tried this, and let's see if I can try to find this. I think one time I did this, and then I went to, and I think I did find something. I found some general information, and it led me uh, to some good information. You can see there the media, the jury, and the high profile defendant. In fact, I think, uh, let's see. This is it. This is actually it. I thought I had found it before. Here it is right here. And if you go here, then it leads you to the media, the jury, a high profile, and that's it. There it is right there. And then you can go through and you can see the article. Okay, so everybody got that. Now I'm gonna tell you who's gonna get this and get this information are students who pay attention to what I say in the lecture. So you copying that. So everybody got it? So now you know what to do with that second one now? Okay. All right. They can't hide stuff from me. Okay. So anyway, they need to do a better job of it. But anyway, I didn't design this course. And then we're going to deal with media and active investigations. We already dealt with this. Okay. So let's talk about this stuff. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. There's a big issue that we run into, and it is stated the right for the public to know and receive the information and the individual right to a fair trial, which is based on the Constitution. And there has to be a balance between the two. And as everybody should realize, we don't have a perfect system. The more the case is a high profile case, the more difficult it is to balance the right to a fair trial that an individual may receive. As we talked about the O.J. Simpson case, and I provided you with all of that information, you could see from the information that I provided to you, in addition to stuff that was in the module that we had, that you could just look at it and see the holes that the prosecution had left in their trial, and therefore the O.J. Simpson verdict that the jury was given was based on the information that they received and the evidence. And so consequently, it was not possible for those individuals to say that the media affected the verdict. No, what affected the verdict of that case was the, I call it the bungling job that the police officers did. And if you paid attention to the O.J. Simpson case, you saw some of the things I talk about constantly about the ethical practices that you have to operate in law enforcement and how it could come back and bite you and when you actually are involved in the trial, and if you don't do the job right, because the other side is going to take advantage of it. So in all due respect, with the prosecution, uh, their case had more holes in it um, than a donut or Swiss cheese, because of the way that they handled the investigation. That is why, guys, as law enforcement people, you have to be very careful about following the protocol and the training that you get. Otherwise, you reach the stage where a person may be uh, um, able to get off when in reality they may have committed the crime because you didn't do the job right, whether it's a violation of the constitutional rights, whether it's, as we discover in this case, evidence means everything. And the credibility of the evidence that's presented, even with the exhibits themselves, like the shoes, the glove, and those kinds of things, So there was a lot of circumstantial stuff that was involved. And so the jury had some very good lawyers to deal with, who were able to present what I call a common sense approach to defending um, that individual. So that's why OJ. Now, as far as the civil trial is concerned, because it's a different one, the standards, of course, are different, preponderance of the evidence. And so it was determined quite clearly that they were going to nail him because there were a lot of things that the Goldman family and the Nicole Simpson's family had that they could utilize in a civil trial, because the standard, you either know that the person did it in a criminal case beyond a reasonable doubt, or else if there's any scintilla of doubt, then there's going to be either a hung jury, or there's going to be a jury that says, well, I still have something in my belly or in the evidence that was presented that wasn't all that great. Now, I would suspect to you that with the O.J. Simpson case, if they had access to some of the media reports that came out as the trial was going on, they would have nailed him. They would have nailed him. And that's the point for sequestration and keeping the media out of the when the trial had started. And so the pretrial media coverage focused on what the police were doing. And like I said again, I said, what the world? Here's what you cannot do as a law enforcement person. Be so anxious to want to nail somebody that you leave a door open for the defense. And plus, trust me, we were very good at being able to go through those doors and use them. And so an individual could easily be found not guilty if you get the right kind of people for the jury. And then, of course, if you look at the makeup of the jury for the original trial, it was different on a racial level, because that was one of the unfortunate parts about the case, is that there was a racial divide that took place with the trial of O.J. Simpson in the criminal courtroom as well as in the civil courtroom. And it matched. But that's an issue that we as people are trying to deal with on a regular basis. Race will not ever disappear from it, because there's individuals who are still going to have certain biases, certain prejudices, and beliefs that no matter what, unless you perform lobotomies, that are going to be able to not clinically get the evidence. And so back to the point here, is that the public, again, has the right to certain information. The First Amendment protects the media, and the Sixth Amendment protects the individual's right to a trial. And so media has to be responsible about reporting that information. In your projects that you're doing, some of the questions, at least one of the questions, deal directly with information, the credibility of information. I've often said that you can't rush to judgment when you're media, because what happens is they ought to try to be the first one to get the story out and may not have the facts. And then, have you ever seen a retraction, particularly in a newspaper? You'll have on the headlines what's happening, and then if there's a retraction later, it's in the obituary section, or in the section where people are looking for jobs and foreclosures and all those different things. In other words, it's hidden in there. But again, both parties have to be responsible. And so the point of the matter is that we as individuals, I don't think I ever want to be placed in a position where I'm shut out as a member of the public about what's going on, because it has to do with what is taking place within our communities and around us. And then, of course, we should have what they said, unbiased juries. Well, the closest thing to an unbiased jury comes about when you have sequestration, or when you have gag orders. You guys familiar with the gag order? I've talked about that before, where either the attorneys or nobody can talk about what's going on there. Now, since now the courtrooms are open to the media, and it even more so now, because you have cameras that are allowed in the courtroom, and you have TV stations that are given the opportunity to cover the trial, and people can be at home and listen to and follow up the way that, as I said, the first one that really created that opportunity was the O.J. Simpson case. And now there is a whole station called Court TV on True TV. Used to be a total court TV station, but now True TV puts those court cases on television, and then in some jurisdictions, um, the cases are put on TV in their local areas. So it says, if we are selected to sit on a jury trial, um, and we let the media coverage influence our decisions, and the answer is we should not. We should not. However, though, it's kind of difficult because you're going to gather in information, and it sometimes get into your what we call unconsciousness, and it may affect your positions or feelings. That's why when we select jurors, we have a process called voir dire, where it's called to seek the truth. And what we do is we try to question jurors about their experiences in life, because we don't want biased individuals to get on the jury. For example, most of the time we try to filter out as jurors people who are professors, people who are former prosecutors, defense attorneys, um, people whose family members now, and this is becoming more and more prevalent, have had experiences with the criminal justice system, whether they were victims or either whether they were not they were offenders or family members that they knew. So to keep things going, we try to rely upon the answers that individuals give. And I am going to tell you, in my experience in years, I get a gut feeling about certain people and do pretty good. But have been instances where I wish I had a client who could afford me to hire a individual who could be a clinician, or either a individual specialty with helping select fair and impartial. That's kind of a misnomer, but as near to fair as impartial as possible. So it's kind of, it is one of those kinds of things. People oftentimes, there are people that automatically think that because you are on trial that you did it, otherwise you wouldn't be on trial. There are really people like that. I have had people on who come into the jury uh, who come in with that position. That's it never fails to amaze you. But sometimes we can get people removed by using our peremptory challenges as lawyers, which most jurisdictions, all that I know, have a certain number of challenges that you can use for whatever reason to disqualify a juror, except you shouldn't use race, sex, or national origin. But if there is the basis, you better have some other strong basis for using it, because it could result in the possibility of either a mistrial or either a reversal when it goes to a higher court. So it says here, talking about the section under the media influence, it says our system is based on due process. So what that means is that you are all presumed innocent until proven guilty. I'm pausing here because I want to say this to you. It's not true. It really is not true. The actual way that it works in the minds of many people, if they're honest, is that you're proven guilty. You're presumed guilty until proven innocent. Everybody get where I'm coming from when I say that, and why I say that? Any points here? You all real quiet tonight. Anything on that? Okay. All right. I just want to be sure that I'm not in here by myself. Because you are in jail, there that to um, are they going to analyze this? Are they breaking this down? Is there a possibility that they could be wrong? Soon as you get that information in, yeah, I know I'm cutting in and out. I don't have any control on that. I don't know what's causing that because we're not using a lot of video. Let me just try to kill my video for now. Let's see if I can. That might help. Let's see. Let me. Okay, let me stop my video. So, um, does that make it a little better with my video not being in there? Okay. They like us to keep our video in here, but we got some issues sometimes with. Okay, good. So we're gonna keep my video out of there. You all know what I look like. Okay. So anyway, the truth of the matter is that we find ourselves in in that situation. Okay. Um, and then we start talking about, so everybody has a right to a presumption of innocence until proven guilty but beyond a reasonable doubt by the prosecution. And they have to rely heavily upon the investigation to be done in a professional manner, not conjured up stuff, not stuff that you think might go in there because it'll come back and blow up in your face, i.e. the O.J. Simpson case and many other cases. I did it. I made a good career out of doing that many times. I caught police officers um, misstating things, making things seem as if they were one way when in reality they were another. You know, so could this be a reason why the media presents or believe that they're right or wrong? For example, um, uh, like people like you got reporters like Nancy Grace. Everybody familiar with Nancy Grace? You familiar with her? Yeah, yeah. Is she really objective in her reporting? No, not at all. And that's one of the problems that media individuals face. No, she's not. She, if I remember Geraldo Rivera, do you remember him? Anybody remember him? Yeah, Geraldo was kind of like a male version of Nancy Grace. And so what this person does is, to me, they create a danger to an individual having a fair trial, because what they do is they begin to sway the public based upon their perception, and they don't even have access to the information. They might be able to conduct some kind of investigation and get information, just like your people that you interview, your your newspaper reporters or your radio reporters, pretty much. um, they form a certain position, and then they want to sensationalize it, and that's what Nancy does. And she has, you know, her own TV show and all of that kind of stuff, and people uh, listen heavily to her. Now, can you imagine you're listening to her, and then you get picked for a jury? You're going to take Nancy Grace with you to the jury, and that is a probable uh, issue that could create an individual's um, right to have a fair trial. I think I know what you just said, but I'm going to put it back up there. Uh, yeah, 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 yeah. And so the point of the matter is that, you know, it's not, that's not is that, would you say that's professional, her calling her tot mom, or unprofessional? Okay, I'll answer it for you. I call it unprofessional. The point of the matter is, and so those kind of individuals um, create a problem as far as individuals getting fair trial. And so, says our society has adapted to being informed by the media, which is what we do rely on, and we give a lot of attention to what the media says to keep us informed, but it should be objective uh, and not subjective. Yet sometimes the media can manipulate and lead the public, i.e., people like Nancy Grace Geraldo, into making assumptions about a person's guilt or innocence even before the facts have been brought out. It may be how they feel about a certain individual. So um, I think that somebody um, was saying that the reason why Mr. Epstein took his life is not so much because of what the media coverage had planted him to be, but the evidence that's gonna was gonna come out in trial um, for him as far as the crime itself. The young man who killed himself, who was the it was known that he was the target of being the suspect in the Vanessa Guillen case. You guys are familiar with the Vanessa Guillen case, where the young lady was in the military and was killed, sexually assaulted, and so forth. Well, the person feeling the heat and the pressure, um, not because of what the media was going to say. Same thing happened with Ken Lay. Those you don't know who Ken Lay is, Ken Lay was the lead person in the Enron case. And as the walls were coming down, he recognized that it wasn't going to be what the media's perception was and all the individuals who had been hurt, but the evidence that was going to be produced that was going to result in a guilt and a very, very, very long prison sentence. So the media is supposed to report information like that, and and it's supposed to not really be the reason why a person might take their lives or either confess to a crime, but they should confess to it because, as when I represented individuals, when I had an opportunity or situation where I pled people guilty, and I did do some, where um, it was no doubt about it that the evidence was going to be overwhelming against the individual as presented in court, and it wouldn't be based on what the media said, and it wouldn't be based upon hearsay. The evidence would speak for itself, and so um, that's what the whole process should be all about anyway, balancing and making sure that takes place. So moving right along here, how, and concluding here with how the media affects investigations. So the statement made is that the impact of law enforcement can be a positive or a negative depending on what the media presents. I would tend to agree with that. Like, for example, when they talk about an example of the missing child, they can provide information to help you to possibly locate that trial, and that individuals themselves can be an extension of law enforcement to help find a child. And the same thing applies to unsolved uh, crimes in America, where there's individuals that are involved. I know that in the Brown's chicken murder, which you may or may not know about, here in Illinois, in a suburban town called Palatine, there were two guys who were who they finally figured out who committed the crimes after many years, when someone finally started talking, not one of the suspects, but they talked to somebody who talked to somebody else. However, that still wasn't enough. And the media got a hold to that information. And so what really nailed them, and the media reported a whole lot about it in our area here. And so these individuals were not deprived of a fair trial, because what resulted in these individuals being convicted, and it was years after the murder had been committed, was evidence that had been preserved. And it was actually as simple as the individuals who committed the offense left their mark um, at the scene. And the way that this one was solved, with the media reporting the information and naming those individuals, but what nailed them really was the one of them, to be exact, was they recovered some chicken that had been eaten partially at the scene, and then when DNA came along, and the DNA matched up with that individual. And then, of course, when that individual saw that he was going down, then he started naming his partner who was involved in the crime. And so the conviction. So those kinds of situations. But the media does try to help, like the young girls that disappeared in Indiana. They they still, all they had was, if you remember the video of the guy walking and listening to his voice, um, and they still haven't gotten anybody on that, and it becomes what we call a cold case. And the reason it's called a cold case is because it's closed, and then sometimes someone comes along years and years later. You've seen on Dateline and some of these other TV shows where the media investigators open up, and you have organizations like my alma mater, Northwestern University, who might um, get a person off, or either investigation is conducted by law enforcement on another level, and they will reopen a cold case and a person is found guilty. So it's not so much the media affecting the investigation, but the media can have a positive benefit to it as well. On the other side, media can hurt investigations. And if you look at this article, Polygraph Keys versus publicity, serial murder, public relations, read that article, then you'll see what I'm talking about. Um, and the polygraph test, by the way, did you know that the polygraph test does not necessarily, they used to call it a lie detector test, but they stopped calling it that because it really doesn't determine whether you're telling the truth or not. Because a person can be nervous about taking the test, whether or not they think that the test itself might misdiagnose them, and doesn't necessarily mean they're telling the truth. So we lawyers have been able to shoot holes in polygraph. I had a professor who, Fred Enbow, I've talked about in my criminal law class, and he wrote a book on truth and interrogation, and he wrote a book, and the term polygraph was what they use. A guy by the name of John Reed and Associates, REID. If you want to do some research, you'll see that he was known for um, providing polygraph tests. And then you also hear sometimes that individuals are willing to take a polygraph test. And most of us defense attorneys, most of us don't like them because of the fact that people place too much confidence in the polygraph test results. And so, so read that article and you'll see. And so finally, as I conclude here with this, um, they're talking about a good lead on criminal offense that is active, such as what was read in the Watergate scandal. And are you guys familiar with the Watergate scandal? It happened years before. Some of you before you guys were born. Most of you guys were not born. The Watergate scandal. Okay. So the Watergate scandal involved, yep, and that is what resulted in uh, President Nixon deciding, because the evidence that was uncovered was pointing to him, and him being the kingpin behind what took place at the Watergate Hotel, as a hotel in D.C. And so what was that you were asking me about? Uh, let's see, let's go. As a defendant, do you call a polygraph that a police officer may have taken, put that credibility to question? Um, well, yeah, but the police officers generally, the prosecution generally don't have police officers take polygraph tests. They don't. They don't. They don't. So because of the unreliability of polygraph tests, so it's not. I would say that it's a bad decision to use it. So in the Watergate scandal, um, it says, or a crucial piece of evidence that the police are using to gain real hard evidence against the accused if the media reviews information on an item, such as a shoe print. Now, this gets back to the case of most cases, but think about the O.J. Simpson, a weapon or some kind of caliber size used in the commission of a crime. And then you start to look at how suspects can tamper with the evidence, or the evidence is not very good. It's going back to the O.J. case, avoiding police detection, leading to the suspect. So the police have to be cautious about releasing information to the media. That's why they have people that are in charge of releasing that information. And what do we call them? You all should know that one. That should jump out. What do we call them? The people who release the information. What are they? Okay. I was waiting for somebody to do it because that's what that is, a public information officer. Because, and actually, as I said earlier, most PIOs were previous media people, and they know how to protect the information and not tamper with an evidence and so forth. So anyway, the bottom line is that there's this issue between the right of the public to know and individuals to have a fair trial. And so the media has the responsibility to do the job, to let the public know. But once again, we get back to the point. Okay, let me close close that out. Okay. So now let's go back to, okay. So we go back to the classroom. So any questions about anything? Any ideas for a key phrase? I have one already in mind. Whoa, Adam. Whoa. Dead on. Dead on. Congratulations. Fair trial. That's it. That is what the whole discussion is all about, a fair trial. And so that's what today's discussion was all about, trying to maintain that and make sure that individuals have that. So you give me that phrase, and I'll say it one last time, fair trial, and you'll get your points. Again, reminding everybody, don't get stressed out over the over your I got one student that already sent me a message saying he can't get anything. And I said early on to individuals, I said, back up your stuff with a blog for the newspaper thing, because there are plenty of those out there. There's a lot of them out there. And then again, the media, I guess I'm kind of in a situation where being here in Chicago, that I'm already kind of like, as they say, in an area where I know so many media people here in Chicago, and that not because I know them, but I know that their willingness to want to help students get assignments done. And then there are organizations like the CPD have a good PIO, and are always willing to explain what they do. And then there are various organizations, like I gave one student the Chicago Crime Commission here in Chicago. Illinois has the Crime Commission, I believe, and I think almost every jurisdiction. And they have PIOs there that can talk to you and answer those questions and provide information and details as well. So, like I said, don't panic. Just be able to get it done. And any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me the way a few of you guys have. All right, so with that, I'm going to say good night. I will see you guys next week. Again, I will be grading between tonight and tomorrow night your week 3 stuff to get your stuff out. So, okay, so I will see you next week for our final lecture, and have a good week. And above all, stay safe because there's the coronavirus is still, especially to you guys down in Florida. You just got through dealing with a hurricane and storm, but you're in that season now, so it's going to keep coming. So, all right, guys, good night and stay safe.